Okay, so it's time for my end of week wrap up for the second week of April, and this week has been the week of questing. Yes, pretty much all the books I read, they revolved around the theme of going on a quest, leaving your home, and traveling across 10 different towns, cities, areas, call them what you will, to go after something or in aid of some kind of a quest. And I have to say, I'm kind of over it. I'm really hoping that one of my books for next week is going to find my protagonists either staying at home or staying in their hometown, going to bed at night in their house, and not having to worry about shelter or food or if the enemy is right behind them. I mean, I don't like traversing all around a country or a world. And for those of you who have read Harry Potter, as you know, in the final book, the three main protagonists, they travel around the countryside, and that's why the first half of the final book is actually my least favourite section of any Harry Potter book out there. And that's what I've been doing all week. I've been travelling everywhere, and I just haven't been enjoying it. So, let's talk about the first book that I read this week, which was The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the first book officially in the Lord of the Rings series, the second book that I'm reading by Tolkien, because last week I read The Hobbit, and I gave The Hobbit 2 stars. I gave The Fellowship of the Ring 1 star. Yeah, I did not enjoy this at all, and there are many reasons as to why I didn't enjoy it, but I just didn't enjoy it so much so that I'm not even going to do a review on this book, because it's definitely not the book for me. While I can appreciate the stepping stones that Tolkien laid for fantasy from when he started writing to modern day fantasy of today, the great works that we have today, like Mistborn, which is so much fun, the books themselves, I'm just not enjoying them. This book is about a quest once again, but it is a quest that I feel... How much can I say without offending people and without giving this away? Let's just say that something happens in The Hobbit that if that moment that took 2 seconds to happen did not happen in the first place, then there will be no need for book 2, 3, or 4. Okay? And yet, because a character who is not the protagonist in this book made that choice in book 1, here we are going on this epic quest that we really shouldn't have to go on, and it's boring me. Now, I made a vow at the beginning of this month, and I'm not going to make this vow again, well, at least not anytime soon, in that I gave 4 books immunity, so can't vote them off the island, can't have them as DNFs, have to get through them no matter what, and they are all of the Tolkien books within this series. So The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings 1, Lord of the Rings 2, and Lord of the Rings 3. Kind of regretting that now, because I probably would have DNF'd this whole series after a couple of chapters into The Hobbit. But didn't enjoy this book. It got 1 star. You can check it out on my Goodreads, but I will not be doing a review for it. Yeah, it's just, I'm certainly not the target audience for this book. I don't appreciate it, and if you'd like to know why, feel free to email me. My email is in the description below, and I'll be more than happy to discuss spoilers with you as to why this is just not my type of book at all, and why I found so many flaws in this book. So, I'll move on from my rambling on Tolkien for now, because next week we'll be talking about another book that Tolkien wrote, which we'll get to in a moment. But the second book that I read this week is this one, Stephen King's The Eye of the Dragon. Now, I'm trying to remember what I gave this book. I think I gave it 4 stars, if I remember correctly. But anyway, you can check out my Goodreads for that, and I am doing a review on this tomorrow. No, I've already done a review on this. Anyway, you can check out that in the review section. I really enjoyed this book. Predominantly, this book is set in a kingdom, and we don't travel miles out of the kingdom. Well, at least those who aren't the main characters don't. There are side characters that do, but that's fine because that only lasts a couple of chapters or so. But otherwise, we basically remain in the kingdom the entire time, and I really appreciate that. There are magic systems in this book, but they are not... The magic system is a soft magic system, which means that it is not very adequately explained and we don't know what the limitations are of that magic system, but it was a lot of fun. Stephen King is a very talented author and I do appreciate his works, but I read some of his horror books earlier this year and they did not scare me at all. But I just really enjoyed the plot of them, so I thought it would be nice to read a Stephen King fantasy, and this book did not let me down. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who loves Stephen King's writing style and the sort of plots that he comes up with in a fantasy setting. Just so much fun to read. Really enjoyed it, and I found out recently that this book, I think, continues on. One of the characters in this book continues on in another series. I think it's called the Dark Tower series or something like that. Don't quote me. And so I am considering purchasing a copy of the first book of the Dark Tower series to continue on with this character, because I did love this book that much. The third and final book that I read this week that I just finished up today was Eragon by Christopher Paolini. I hope I'm saying his name correctly, and if I'm not, I'm sorry there, dear Christopher. This is the first book in the Inheritance Cycle series, and it revolves around the protagonist whose name is Eragon. This was very confusing for me because I've seen this cover many times. We have copies of this book at my work, and I always just assumed that Eragon was the name of the dragon. So it took me quite a while to realize that no, Eragon is the name of the main character, who is, for all intents and purposes, let's just call him a human for now. He is more than that, but we're led to believe that he's a human in the beginning. He ends up coming into this egg. The egg hatches, and it hatches a dragon, which he ends up giving a really good name to, and I keep forgetting what her name is, but it's a really beautiful name. I'm going to try and find out what it is. It's on the way. Saphira, which is a really beautiful name. It's a name I have not heard before, spelled Saphira. Saphira. Beautiful, beautiful name. This book does have a magic system associated to it, unlike this book. Okay, you want to talk to me about the magic in this book? Let's go, let's talk. Ding ding, find a verbal boxing ring and let's talk about that book and its magic system that is so loose and hardly comes up at all. This book does have magic in it. The magic system, I want to say it's a hard magic system because there are very clear limitations to the magic in this book, and mainly it is derived from speaking certain incantations of a, shall we say, forgotten language. So that was very interesting. But don't go into this book for the magic system itself, because while it is there, it is not the main focus. I would recommend, if you are looking for a book about dragons, you will love this book. If you are looking for an amazing friendship, you will love this book, because it does mainly revolve around the protagonist Eragon and his dragon Saphira. And yeah, their relationship and their quest, there's that magic word again, ding ding ding, that they go on that takes them far away from home. Anyway, the book was good. I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I don't think I'm going to continue on with the series because while I did love this book, I just don't think it's offering the kind of plot that I want to read at the moment, which is more about magic and magic systems. Excuse me, as opposed to going on quests, and I have the feeling that the questing will continue in book 2, and I just don't want to be questing anymore. Quest. Have I said that word enough yet? Okay, so those are the 3 books that I read this week. 1 star. Ugh, so over Tolkien. I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend, but I'm over Tolkien. 4 stars, and I gave this one 3 stars. I was going between 3 and 4, but in the end there were just a couple of things that bumped it down to a 3-star for me. Although, credit where it's due, I only found out today that Christopher Paolini actually published this book when he was 17 years old. So in saying that, for a 17-year-old to have written this book, mind-blowing, because it is a good book. It's just based on the book alone and not the age of the author at the time. 3 stars. Alright, so let's now move into what I'm going to be reading this week, and, well, it shouldn't surprise any of you that I'm going to be holding up a Tolkien. I can't wait for May, and to be free of this whole saga. Seriously, I did it because it is my best friend's birthday this month. In fact, it is her birthday today, Sunday the 12th of April, which is also Easter, but it's her birthday today, and so in honour of her birthday, I said that I would go about reading her favourite series, The Lord of the Rings, and yeah. We'll have lots to discuss on this series, but anyway, this is the book that I'll be reading this week, week 3 in April, Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, which is part 2 to the Lord of the Rings saga, but the 3rd book that I'm reading from Tolkien if you include The Hobbits. You can see my bookmark in there. I have started, I've read a little bit, and so far I'm seeing some improvements from book 2, which I really do appreciate. One thing that I can say that is spoiler-free is that in The Hobbit and in The Fellowship of the Ring, if the main character, if the protagonist was not there while something was happening, we were not able to see it happening when it happened. So, for example, let's say the protagonist is over at a supermarket while everyone else is over at a bonfire. We will not see the other characters at the bonfire until afterwards when they meet up with the protagonist who's come back from the supermarket, who are then relaying the story of the bonfire, which really does annoy me. The films seem to deviate from this, and I really do appreciate that because they will show multiple different perspectives with some really interesting battles and things that go on aside from what the character themselves are seeing, and we're seeing these things happen live while they're occurring. So I really appreciate the adaptation with the films and the creative liberties they've taken. With book number 3, this does seem to have deviated. I don't know if Frodo, who was the main character of book 1, and I assume he's still the main character in book 2, I don't know, but I assume he is. If Frodo is the main character in this book, then Tolkien has deviated from that with this, because we are following everyone who's not Frodo at the moment, and I appreciate that. So it shows that Tolkien has been willing to take the liberty of following everyone and not just the protagonists themselves. So I do appreciate that. It is not written in a perspective format, but at the same time it's nice to see what's going on with everyone else while Frodo is not there. So I do appreciate that, but we'll see how we go. Wish me luck. 2 books down, including this one, 2 books to go, and then I'm done with this saga, and I will give you my full thoughts on all 4 books and all of the films, because I'm watching the films side by side with the books when I get to the end of this month, and yeah, I'm sure I'll have lots to say. It'll probably be a spoiler version. Now, the second book that I was originally intending on reading this in week 3 for April was going to be High Voltage by Karen Marie Moning, or Karen Marie Moning, something like that. However, I did some research and found out after I had already decided it was going to go on to my April TBR that it was actually book 10 in a series. I still put it onto the TBR because it was a book that I had borrowed from my library that I had a really good feeling about. And in the introduction, Karen Marie does say that you can read book 10 and that there's a little bit of background info placed somewhere in the book where you don't need to read the rest of the series, and that's fine. But I just couldn't do it. So what did I do instead? I went out of my way, took a massive risk, and actually purchased the first book in the series. So the first book in this series is called Dark Fever. So I'm going to give this book a go. If I love it, yay. Who knows if I'll make it back to High Voltage. We'll see how we go. But this is actually the first book in the Fever series. I believe it's called the Fever series. Yes, the Fever series. So we'll see how we go with this. It is a fantasy, I believe, and I believe there is magic within this series, but we'll see how we go, and provided we're not going on a quest, I'm going to be really happy. Okay, the next book, I don't have all of the books here that I need to show you, but that's okay, we'll get to that in a moment. The next book that I'm going to be reading in week 3, which I'm going to be reading 3 full books and then part of another book, was going to be... What was it going to be? I don't even remember what it was going to be. I honestly don't remember what it was going to be, but I've replaced that one anyway with this one. Brandon Sanderson's Steelheart. Okay, you guys. So, with these books that I read this week, I told you what I thought. But I tell you what, I got to many points throughout week 2 in April where I thought, oh my god, I miss Sanderson. I miss Sanderson so much. Like, I just want to give the guy a massive hug because of what he's done for me. So I had checked this book out of my library prior to the lockdown, so I'm really happy that I did. This is not Mistborn, but it is written by the same author who wrote Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson, and from what I've been told, it contains a magic system within it, and the magic system is part of the driving plot, which is the same with Mistborn. The magic system is definitely part of the driving plot that moves you forward, unlike other books that we will not speak of, Mr. Tolkien. Okay, so yeah, very much looking forward to this. I know of a couple of people who have read this who have said that it's absolutely amazing. They say it's not as good as Mistborn, but it's Sanderson, and it does live up to what I know Sanderson to be an epic tale with a ton of magic, and I'm really looking forward to getting right in there and reading this. Please, Brandon Sanderson, I'm crossing my fingers here, please, Brandon Sanderson, please do not send them on a quest, because I don't want to go on a quest this week. I mean, can't authors just, have characters staying in their home? I mean, they don't have to be in lockdown. We're in lockdown at the moment. But can't they just have the quest be that they go to the supermarket and then they go back home? That would be amazing. I'm going to quickly pause and then I'll come back with the 4th book that I'm not going to finish, but that I am going to be continuing to read in just a moment. Okay, so the 4th and final book that I am going to be reading is not one that I'm going to be completing. It's one that I'm kind of reading throughout the weeks of April because of how long it is, and of course it is the final book in the first Mistborn trilogy, Mistborn: The Hero of Ages. So, I have already started reading this one. In fact, I got up to page 268 out of whatever it is. It's a very long book, you guys. 724. So it's a tome and a half, okay? So that's why I planned on reading it all throughout April, but these books did not give me time to read this book in week 2. I had already mapped out every book that I was going to read and what week and in what order and all that stuff, and there was just no time to read this one in week 2, and I missed it terribly. I missed being with my Vin and my Elend and everyone else that's part of this wonderful world of Luthadel and Allomancy and magic, and yeah. This is just an amazing world, but it is the final book in the first Mistborn trilogy. For those of you who don't know, I recently found out that while there are, I believe, 6 books out at the moment, I think Sanderson is currently working on his 7th. The first 3 are part of one trilogy, and then the second 3, 4, 5, and 6 are part of a separate trilogy. The 4th book is The Alloy of Law, and I excuse me, I am 99% sure that I'm going to be purchasing that one very soon so I can read it in June, because having a week without my Mistborn, I've been struggling without my Mistborn. There have been times I've wanted to put down the books I'm reading and pick up this one. So I don't know how this is going to conclude and how that will affect the second trilogy in the Mistborn series, but I definitely want to read the 4th book, because, I mean, come on, it's Sanderson, it's Mistborn, it's the most amazing thing I've ever read, and I thought I would only say that about Harry Potter, but no, Mistborn is better. So, I'm sorry. I mean, let's get that metaphorical boxing ring back and let me talk to you about Mistborn and why you should be reading this series, okay? You will not be disappointed until there comes a time when you're not reading this series and you want to desperately go back to it. But anyway, so I will definitely be reading this one. I don't remember how much of it I'm going to be reading, but it'll be a pretty decent chunk. I would say a good 150, 200 pages. And then that will lead me into week 4, where I will finish off this book alongside, I believe there's 2 other books that I'm going to be reading in week 4 that are also parts of a series that I'm finishing off. So there we go. So this was a very big weekly wrap up for week 3. So let's just surmise everything and wrap it all up very quickly. The 3 books that I read for this week were Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, 1 star, don't ask. Stephen King's The Eyes of the Dragon, 4 stars, really amazing story. And Christopher Paolini's Aragon, 3 stars, really good book. Not a massive magic system, but it is there. The books I'm going to be reading this week, excuse me, include the second book in the Lord of the Rings series, The Two Towers. Wish me luck. Karen Marie Moning's first book in the Fever series, rather than the 10th one, first one, Dark Fever. And, of course, my favourite author currently, Brandon Sanderson's Steelheart, is the third book I'll read this week. And then, of course, continuing on with the lives of Vin and Elend in Mistborn, The Hero of Ages. Now, if you do want to buddy read along with me, this is how it's going to look. I'm going to be reading Two Towers between now and Wednesday. Alongside this book, as of Tuesday, I will be reading Dark Fever. I should finish this book on Wednesday or Thursday, it'll be one of the two, and then finish this book the following day. So hopefully I'll finish this Wednesday, finish this Thursday, and then be reading this alongside this. Pick up Steelheart and get through that, I believe, around Friday, Saturday, somewhere along there, and then spend my final day, Sunday, reading Mistborn. So if you'd like to buddy read along with me, feel free to do so. If you have any comments, thoughts, and or questions, please do not hesitate to leave them in the comments section below. Letting you guys go peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday with reviews in between. Until then, mwah, happy reading. Bye.